Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight with the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues episode number 349. Man, hotel room lighting is the worst. It really is the worst. Anyhow, um, this is another episode of, since it's the last Friday of the month, that's when we tend to do the Ask Me Anything version of the dialogues. And so I am here, ready and waiting and willing to answer any questions that might come my way over the course of the next 60 minutes or so. So, while you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. I do that every week throughout the dialogues. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe over there and hit the notification bell as well. While people are warming up and what have you, do me a favor. Um, if you not heard of Titans of Jeet Kune, so if I do this, Cass Magda is going to kill me, right? If I put that up for too long, Cass Magda is going to kill me. So I'm going to put it up long enough that nobody can read it, right? But go to titansofjkd.com for all the information. Titansofjkd.com for all the information. Okay, let me get that down, right? Don't anybody go freeze that image and take a look at it, right? But I had to put something up today. Otherwise, I was going to get in trouble with my senior. Um, while we're waiting for people to log in and what have you, let me do some commerce with you. This is my intro product to online instruction, I guess, online streaming and what have you. This is the Jeet Kune Do Quick Skills series. This is volume one of called Junfan Kickboxing. And that is the URL to get it, jkdrebel.gumroad.com/L/XZALL. thejkdrebel.gumroad.com/L/XZALL. Quick Skills Junfan Kickboxing Volume 1 at paypal.me/unified MA Miami. PayPal.me/unified MA Miami. That's where you will find the Jeet Kune Do Journey Volume 1, the raw but edited version. That is at paypal.me/unified MA Miami. A lot of commerce. If you have not yet gone over and followed the JKD drills, Jeet Kune Do drills page here on Facebook, please do that. Facebook.com/JKD drills. And two more, just two more. Hang on. This is the URL for, let me change that so you can see the full thing. That's the URL for the GoFundMe for Petal, my student Wayne Quinton down in Barbados. This is to help her in her fight against breast cancer. That is GoFundMe.me/03D as in Delta 3, B as in Bravo, E as in Edward, D as in Delta 3. So if you'd make some kind of contribution there, I would greatly appreciate it. Last but not least, hopefully I fixed the stuff on this one. I probably didn't. Who knows? Right. But this is rebelgear.printify.me, rebelgear.printify.me, and that's where you can find all this type of stuff. I clicked the wrong thing. Hey, Ron Reagan. So Ronnie's actually across the hall. We're here in Atlanta, well, in Johns Creek, not Atlanta, right, for a weekend seminar with Sifu Dan and Sifu Francis Fong, right? This is where you go to, nope, that ain't it either. Well, it's rebelgear.printify.me. That's where you can find all that stuff. Okay, so let's get the ball rolling. And let's see. So I have absolutely nothing prepared right now for you guys. So whatever it is that comes into the feed in terms of a question, that that's what we're gonna go with. And there is oh okay. Bucky snuck that one in on me, right? What is the substitution principle? Well, okay. Easiest place. So this is let me show you guys something. This is this is my I can't even get it out of the glare, right? But all of this, right, is the online curriculum that I'm working on for Jeet Kune drills. And of course, the reason why it's not out yet is because, well, what am I doing? I'm trying to perfect it, right? Get it all written down before I put it out there. It is quite substantial, right? And um, Bucky's question about the substitution principles. Well, I could spend the rest of the 60 minutes that we have allotted to this podcast answering what is the substitution principle. But um, I'll just take right from the first page of this curriculum, right? Let's say that let's say you're doing a 3 count kickboxing combination, right? So you're going jab cross lead hook kick. Well, you could train the three techniques: the jab, the cross, the lead hook kick. An aspect, this is not the only way that you could look at the substitution principle, all right? Okay. An aspect of the substitution principle, Bucky, would be instead of performing the three techniques, the two punches and the one kick, what you do instead is the footwork required to deliver the two punches and deliver the one kick. So that's an example of the substitution principle. A much more obvious example of the substitution principle would be to go jab uppercut. So we substitute the cross for an uppercut. Still rear hand, right? But we change the technique. And then we could even substitute the hook kick for side kick. So those are very obvious, very blatant examples of the substitution principle. But it is a thing, Bucky, that can go really, really deep, right? There can be just simple renderings of it, and then there could be like more complex renderings of it. And we use it in both empty hands training and weapons training, right? Very often, it's easier to see and understand this stuff when you do weapons training, right? So, for example, let's say you're defending an angle of attack and you're using single stick, and then you learn how to defend that same angle of attack, but now instead of using single stick, maybe you're using single dagger, or you're using the palm stick, or you're using empty hands, right? And then you go back to, let's say it's angle one, so it's single stick versus single stick, and then maybe what you do is now the person who's attacking substitutes the weapon. So now his weapon might be the dagger. You're still on the receiving end. You're still the one who's being attacked. But now he's not using the stick and you're using the stick. He's using the dagger and now you're using the stick, right? So it's a little bit different. Okay. But endless variations and variables in this thing called the substitution principle. Okay. So I hope that answered your question there, Bucky. Right. Tony Tony Takle says, "What do you like are Indonesian martial arts?" I wonder. I wonder if R is supposed to be about Tony. What do you like about Indonesian martial arts? That might be what the question really is, right? Let me see if yeah. Okay, so he did correct it, right? What do you like about Indonesian martial arts? Um, well, I don't. I own. I the only Indonesian martial art that I know about is pencak silat, right? And I've been exposed to mm, um, major exposure to, I would say, two systems of Indonesian martial art, right? Or three. You could almost say three, right? But really, pencak silat Sarah and pencak silat Bukti Negara. Bukti Negara is what we used to call it in the old days. I don't know if they still refer to it this way, but we used to call Bukti Negara one of the carrier systems, right, for Sarah. So really, I guess you could say that's just one system. And then the other system that I have exposure to is the late Herman Suwanda's um, um, Pencak Silat Mande Muda, right? What do I like? I liked the the variety of stuff that you get in Mande Muda, right? And really, they had some interesting techniques that I had never seen anywhere before, right? Kind of flashy, kind of flamboyant, but still, interesting. Now, Pencak Silat Sarah, what do I like? I like the idea of I think it was Sifudan who got it translated, masuk dan tembus, right? Which is like a word for word translation of enter with penetration, right? Which sounds funny, I know, but we're adults here, okay? So I remember we were in Janesville, Wisconsin in the summer of 1988, and Sifudan was talking about Penjak Silat and their entry system. And he was saying how in the Wing Chun that the penetration in the entry was only so far. Whereas in Penjak Silat, it's like their entry technique was designed because a lot of it is about off balance in you. Their entry system like went through you, Cass Magda has talked about it as being, I think this is what something that Pendekar Paul de Tours said, right? When it comes to your entry, you want to be inside his house, right? Okay. So it's about having um, a really serious crash system when you enter, and that's definitely one of the things that I like about Penjak Silat. Um, Also, in the way that Cas Magda will approach Silat instruction, what I like about what he does is that it's very JKD like in terms of simplicity, directness, um, and efficiency, right? So I really like that. There's just like a handful of techniques, um, and you end up working the snot out of this handful of techniques because why? Goes back to what Bucky asked about the substitution principle, right? So it's like if I have technique A, technique B, technique C, right? I could work them ABC, I could work them ACB. I could work them BCA. I could work them BAC. I could work them CBA, or I could work them CAB. So that's a thing about the substitution principle. And I could work them in kind of like in combination with each other, or I can also work them as counters to each other, or even recounters to each other. So a handful of techniques, just like Bruce Lee was talking about, few simple techniques, right? But taken to a really high level of proficiency. Um, Cass's approach to Penjak Silat, to me, harkens back to that Jeet Kune idea, and so I really enjoy that part, right? Okay, Tony, I hope that answered your question there. Okay, Frank Nordquist wants to know: did you ever address Sammy Franco's absurd criticism of JKD? most of Sammy's videos have an angry tone and I don't enjoy watching them. Okay, so then don't watch them. Okay, Frank, right? Don't watch them. If you don't if it doesn't bring you enjoyment, don't watch them. I don't know. I never addressed his absurd criticism of JKD. Not like did a whole podcast issue about it or whatever. I think I made a comment on Facebook, and I may have made a comment on the YouTube. But a lot of people have become aware that Sammy Franco has been around for a long time. Um, I am pretty sure I recognize his name from, it's got to be at least the 80s, if not the 90s. So we're talking 30 years ago minimum. And I don't know if he has ever been extremely complimentary towards Jeet Kune. And some would say, well, why not? Because apparently a lot of his material seems very Jeet Kune like. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of his material, right? I think I read a couple of articles or something back in the day, and didn't strike me as being so as anti Jeet Kune as he might appear to be these days. In fact, it seemed kind of JKD like, and that's the thing, right? See, look, we talked about this before. To go online and criticize something is almost a surefire way to get eyes, to get views of for your content. To use Ronnie, what did Chuck Giangreco tell us in Dallas? If the titles of your videos are um, click, click, oh gosh, I can't remember the term now, right? It's like if they're click worthy, I'll make that phrase up. If they're click worthy and algorithm sensitive, okay, then that type of stuff, YouTube and Instagram will do the work for you. Facebook probably too, to push your stuff up, right? So if you have a clickable title, right, a clickbaity title, that I don't think that's what Chuck said, but you guys know what I mean. So if you put something like so and so destroys such and such, right? This person embarrassed by this other person or whatever. You put stuff like that. So if you put something like Jeet Kune will get you killed in a street fight, okay? Jeet Kune never works. Remember when Jason Corral did what was his title? Um, Why Dan and Asano is wrong. Remember that, right? That type of thing. Okay, though there are certain titles that will attract the eyes, will get the click, will get the views, and for some people, that's what's important, right? If I remember correctly, Sammy said um, that Jeet Kune doesn't work, but that he trained in Jeet Kune, and then he said something about, when I tell you that Jeet Kune doesn't work, it's not an opinion, it's a fact, right? Now, right there, you can stop watching, because what you know is coming is that what he's using is the problem, agitate, solve strategy of Carlos Redlick is on here, so Carlos knows exactly, because Carlos is one of the country's top copywriters. So he will recognize that right. So you state the problem. So what's the problem? The problem is that there's this well-known martial art method out there that doesn't work, right? So then you agitate the problem by using statistics or any kind of inflammatory language. And then what do? You offer your thing as the solution for this problem that you have just agitated. It's very effective. And as a marketer myself, to a certain degree, I'm not going to fault a guy for using a tried and tested and proven system to do his thing. Now, I don't agree with what he's saying, but I know more about Jeet Kune than a lot of people out there. So Sammy is going to attract attention from some people, and some people are going to go check him out. And then there are other people like me and you, Frank, who are not going to be swayed by his language. So, it ends up being as simple as that. But since you don't enjoy it, stop watching them. Okay, my friend? All right. um, okay. Chip and Grace are in Macon on their way to Johns Creek. Okay, cool. We'll see you. No, by the time you get here, Chip, I'm going to be asleep. Okay? Because, 8:30 p.m., that's the time this young guy goes to bed, right? Terry Valor. Okay, Terry always has good stuff. From a JKD point of view, is single stick and single knife more important to get a skill set in than double stick or double knife? Hmm. Okay. So, Terry, from a JKD point of view, is it better to be good with your lead hand only, or to be better, or to be good, or is it better to be good with your lead hand and your rear hand? Or a third way of looking at it, is it better to be good from either left lead or right lead? You see, so that then you have two good lead hands and you have two good rear hands. Okay? Because single stick, single dagger, that's one sided. Double stick and double dagger, now you're using both hands. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? However, I'm not going to tell you that because you asked me from a JKD point of view, right? Now, a lot of what people do in double stick is for, well, okay, let me rephrase it. A lot of what I do in double stick is not for combat application as much as it is for coordination of both sides of the body. Because I don't happen to think that double stick is a primary fighting method or even a fundamental fighting method. I think that's more of a stylized thing, right? For me, okay, understand that. For me, double dagger also. I think that double dagger is an extrapolation of double stick, right? Because when you see a lot of people doing double dagger, how do they do it? They do it like if they're doing double stick, and when and one of the other things about, well, let's go back to double stick, right? Here's something I notice: a lot of people don't realize that when you're doing double stick, that your right and your left side are not equal. If you're right-handed, as am I, the stick in the left hand is your checking hand when you're in single stick. It has that backup purpose as opposed to being primary, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up, Terry, is simply because you asked from a JKD point of view. See, so this is the thing. If you had not prefaced your question from a JKD point of view, then my answer would have been a little bit different. But so what you're talking about, Terry, is how the training of Filipino martial art can relate back to Jeet Kune Do proficiency. So that's why my answer as is as I can't even think of the word, right? But it's because you asked about a JKD point of view. So what people sometimes fail to understand or even fail to realize is that at least, okay, this is why sometimes I should get these questions in advance because then I can do a better job of answering them. Okay, here's what a lot of people in JKD sometimes do not get and do not appreciate. There is a difference between training in Filipino martial arts as a Filipino martial artist and training in Filipino martial arts because you're a Jeet Kune practitioner. It's not the same thing, and it's not supposed to be the same thing. There are specific reasons for training in Filipino martial art so that you might not be interested in all the aspects of Filipino martial art the way a student and a practitioner of Filipino martial art alone might be. The JKD practitioner who delves into Filipino martial art is doing so for a specific purpose. It's kind of like when Bruce Lee talked about delving into boxing, not to become a boxer, but to understand the highs and the lows, right? Or as Paul Vunak would say, to what attributes what attributes are developed by training in boxing. Okay, same thing with Muay Thai. The Jeet Kune Do practitioner who delves into Muay Thai is not looking to become a Thai boxer, but is looking to understand the highs and the lows. Because the best way to learn how to fight with a thing, right, is to train in the thing. And the best way to learn how to fight against a thing, how to counter a thing, is to train in the thing and learn the counters from the people who are good at it. So it's similar to Filipino martial art. So there are specific reasons to be training in Filipino martial art. So you're not necessarily going to be doing double dagger and double stick for the same reasons as a total Filipino martial art practitioner, or even train in the same way, right? And Terry, that answer just comes because you asked me from a JKD point of view. It could be a somewhat different answer if there was no preface like that. Okay. All right. Um, Bucky wants to know if the endlessness, the endlessness of the substitution principle, is it related to the no limitation aspect of JKD? Um, Bucky, I guess it could be right if we. I guess it could be, but the no limitation aspect of Jeet Kune Do is, yeah, I guess it could have like a physical application and then somewhat of a philosophical or esoteric application. So the endlessness of the substitution principle could be related to no limitation if the the context in which you're viewing no limitation as limitation is based on physicality. But if you're talking about a mindset, a no limitation mindset, which is not always the same thing as a no limitation when it comes to your physical capabilities, then the substitution principle might not be as important. It might not be as relevant. The mindset of no limitation is a thing that has to do with being relentless, is a thing that has to do with never giving up, right? Has to do with always moving forward. That's an aspect of no limitation. That doesn't have anything to do with me substituting um, kick for punch, punch for kick, right? Inside parry for outside parry or what have you, because that's the physical training, right? So they can be related, but they're not necessarily identical, right? And you would have to you'd have to do some deep thinking to truly understand how they're related, but then how they are not. Okay. Um, and what is this? Carlos Redlick put whatever emoji that is, but I don't think that's a pleasant emoji. Is that the throwing up emoji? He put that for Silat, right? Oh, but then he followed it with that. Oh, okay. All right. So I guess he was making a joke. But if Carlos is making a joke about how like he's not turned on by Silat, it's probably because he couldn't do it. You know what I mean, right? Because them young kids, all they knew to do was kick and punch, right, and elbow and knee. That's all they knew, right? That's why back in the day, a guy like Carlos Redlick, like one reason why he couldn't handle the Jeet Kune and the Kali is because even the salutation, right? The salutations had four parts to them, right? Both the JKD salutation and the Kali salutation had four parts. The Muay Thai salutation only had one. So guys like Carlos Redlick, they couldn't handle, more than one thing. I'm totally kidding. Okay. Carlos was one of my best students ever, right? But so I'm only kidding, right? Carlos actually, to this day, had one of the best. I mean, a real standout Muay Thai test, right? In terms of his conditioning and what have you. Never seen anybody take a Thai test like that. Really, he handed it to the guys who were testing him, and that usually is not the way it goes at all. Usually the two guys that are feeding you, they give it to you. But Carlos was able to turn the tables on his feeders. So he's a good guy. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about him not being able to handle the salutations. Right. Okay. Del Mountain says that Sammy Franco recently said that it is almost impossible to defend yourself from a knife attack using a stick. He says that in the real world, striking the knife hand doesn't work. Okay. Um, I want to say that if he said that, I wonder what I wonder what he went on to say. I wouldn't be surprised, right? Because I haven't seen this video. But he says that it's almost impossible to defend yourself from a knife. I bet you what he said, right? And they'll tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, is that in the stick fighting, they teach all these fancy techniques when if you're going to use stick fighting against a knife, you need a simple technique. You're not going to be able to hit the guy in the knife hand with a bunch of fancy techniques. You need something that's simple and direct. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he ended up saying, which would be typical of how you talk in a video like his, right? You say, "Oh, they teach you all these fancy techniques that are not going to work." Instead, so that's the problem, see? Because when you're doing a bunch of fancy techniques, if you learned a whole bunch of fancy techniques, you might not even be able to choose the one that you need in a knife fight situation, a knife defense situation. But if you train with me, I'll show you the simple direct technique that works 100% of the time or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how his video went, but I haven't seen it, so I could be dead wrong, right? But yeah, I don't know why he would say that it's almost impossible to defend yourself from a knife attack using a stick. I guess if you have no training, it would be impossible. But if you've trained target practice and what have you, I wouldn't say that it's almost impossible. I'd say your chances are highly increased if you've done some training, right? And you have the longer weapon against the shorter weapon. I'd have to know what scenario he was describing, right? Um, so Mark Goulet says, if I have an hour with a partner, what should I work on? Practicing fighting or drills, catching, boxing, and grappling? Mark, you should work on whatever it is that you guys need to work on. You got to identify, I mean, have a good reason for getting together and working out, right? So I'm not sure if you when you say practicing fighting or drills, I wonder if you're talking about should you spar like freelance sparring or should you do drills of um, I don't know what catching boxing. I don't know if catching boxing is a style of boxing with which I'm unfamiliar, or if you're talking about catch wrestling, boxing, and grappling. I'm not too sure. So I don't understand exactly what it is that you're saying. But if what you mean by practicing fighting is free sparring, right? And your question is, if you have an hour, should you work on free sparring or work on drills? That's entirely up to you guys. If you and your training partner have reached the stage where doing everything freelanced, doing everything non-scripted, let's call it, right? No patterns. If you've reached the stage where you find that that is what is ultimately beneficial for the two of you, then by all means, that's what you should work on. But if you and your partner are still at the stage, or either one of you is still at the stage where you need to still be cultivating skill, then I would say work on the drills. You see, because going to freelance, so like the way I have set up my training system and teaching system, we work first on building all kinds of coordination. Okay. So we were talking about this the other day. So you guys know Sifu Basman from Zaria, Nigeria. And we were working on getting the equipment that Alex Hausman had so graciously sent to him. Um, we were working on getting that out of customs, and apparently that went through, and so now they have the equipment. So he put up a video of them using the kick shield and using the focus mitts and that type of thing, right? And it got me to thinking. So I was telling you the way I've set up my teaching and training system. You work first on coordination drills, then you work on what we call combat drills. So you take the coordination drills and you convert them into combat drills. Then we work a blend of coordination and combat, borrowing to a certain extent from the Filipino martial art, and we work on flow drills, and ultimately you work from a freelance basis. So stages one, two, and three are somewhat prearranged, but then stage four is what I call free arranged. But there are elements of free arranged within stages one, two, and three, right? But ultimately, freelance is how you want to do stuff. So the problem with in JKD, that one of the problems in JKD training that I have that I have come to realize is that we would go to the focus mitts immediately, like day one. If a person it comes to train, they're already hitting the focus mitts, and I have changed a lot of that in my approach, and I'll be upfront with you. It's because of my training in TCF the system with Gerard Joseph, with G. Anthony Joseph. He brought me to an understanding of what it is. that we were doing with the focus mitts that could be improved upon. And so I changed my entire approach to the focus mitts. But I also realized through my interactions and my study with him why it is that JKD people go to the focus mitts so quickly. And this is my theory on it. Because when people are hitting something, you have that aural feedback. And so it sounds and feels the tactile feedback like you're doing something. And back in the old days, what was one of the JKD maxims, right? Whatever the traditional schools are doing, you want to do something different. So what did Bruce Lee say? Now they spend time kicking and punching the air, right? So we're going to spend time kicking and punching equipment. We're going to hit something because hitting something is more realistic than hitting the air. Well, that's true, but that doesn't mean that hitting the air is a complete waste of time because it is not. People have to be able to, let's call it shadow box, right? Since we don't want to call it do katas, right? Or to tease Ronnie Reagan, we don't want to call it doing the jurus, right? But seriously, being able to pull off your technique crisply and sharply in the air is something that more JKD people should spend time on, right? So, Mark, final analysis. You and your training partner would know better than I ever could what stage of development you guys are at. And if you feel like freelance, no fixed patterns, no script for your training is the way to progress, then go ahead and do it that way. All right. Okay. I hope that helps, my friend. Um, in the incident that Magazine Retriever is referring to, I don't know how I would defend myself in the precarious environment of an arena seating area. The concrete and hard seats are so dangerous. Um, did I miss something? That magazine? Oh, shoot. Sorry. Okay, Scorch. Thanks. I completely missed that. Let me scroll back up. Um, Terry said, okay, Bucky, I missed something from you too. All right, sorry guys. All right, let me do this one first. Okay, secret. Did you see the story in the news about the elderly usher at Kansas City Arena who got severely beaten by a young man after he told him he was sitting in the wrong seat? Oh God, no, I didn't see it. That's terrible. Oh man, wow. Um, no, I didn't see that story. So okay, so what is it then that Scorch is saying in that incident? I don't know how I would defend myself in the precarious environment of an arena sitting area. The concrete and hard seats are so dangerous. Well, Scorch, you mean well, the usher was an old man who probably has little or no training, right? I mean, who the hell expects to get a severe beating simply because he told somebody they're in the wrong seat? But the second that I read that about, the arena sitting area, Tony opened up the conversation today about what do I like about Pendrak Silat, right? Okay, so check this. In that scenario, let's say that the the usher was not an old man, was not an elderly gentleman. Let's say was a young kid, right? Or and had some training. Okay. Now I'll make a joke here. If he has jujitsu training, you know what he's going to do, right? He's going to try to pull guard on that concrete and the hard seat. And that would be ridiculous, right? But you know how those jujitsu people are. I'm kidding. I'm just playing, right? Now, if I'm still playing, Now, if you're kind of like an original Jeet Kune guy, right? Then the kid who's sitting down, I don't know how effective it would be to try to kick him in the groin or kick him in the knee because he's sitting down. But I think you could pull off your BUG, right, Mick Tully? You could still pull off your eye jab, right? Now, I don't know if the cops would be on your side if, as the usher, when you said to somebody you're in the wrong seat and you ended up sticking your fingers into the guy's eye. I don't know if the law would be on your side. Now, if the rules allowed the ushers to remove people, right, and the kid is sitting, I can think of quite a number of Penjak Silat approaches that could extricate him from that seat. But I don't see a slide up sidekick, you know, um, being the thing, a side kick to the knee or a front kick to the groin. So, them JKD fundamental techniques would be out. But gaining control over him, right? I could think of some Pendraxia and some grappling stuff that could do the job for sure. But in any case, that kid who beat up an old man, and the kid, I wouldn't be surprised if the kid knew he was sitting in the wrong seat. He's a scumbag, right? Um, okay, so I got to scroll back up because is this it? I think this, no, we did that one, the endlessness of the situation. So where, hang on. Ah, okay, here's Bucky with one of his esoterica. How could JKD not do something when it's not even a fixed style? How can JKD not do something when it's not even a fixed style? Because not being a fixed style, Bucky, doesn't mean that you can do everything. You see, because JKD might not be a fixed style, but like I've demonstrated here several times over the past 6 years, 9 years that I've been doing this podcast, if I decide that this is how I'm going to hold my fist and this is how I'm going to punch, and I go, what Bruce Lee said, using no way as way. So this is my Jeet Kune punching system. I should be carted off to the asylum. Okay. And none of you guys should come pay me a visit because that's ridiculous. Right. So, how can JKD not do something when it's not even a fixed style? It's not the same as saying JKD, because it's not a fixed style, can do anything. Nope. Nope. Still has to have a common sense approach, Bucky. All right. Um, Frank says, "Do you believe that every technique in someone's kata should be a technique they would use in a real fight or self-defense situation?" Oh man. um, well, look, Frank. A lot of these kata were probably designed and developed before I was born. So I can't come along and tell them, how they should have designed it. Okay. So since I wasn't there to know why, whoever founded a system, why the kata had have what they have in them, I can't say that it should be a technique they would use in a real fight or in a self-defense situation. What I would say is that, because see, I don't know of anybody in Shotokan, in Goju, in Wado Ryu, in Shito Ryu, who is currently examining their kata and switching them around for more realistic or practical self-defense usage. I doubt that they are. The thing, if somebody in a classical system was to ask me, um, would I think, hang on a second, hang on a second, Frank, because I'm telling you this, I'm thinking about clips that I have seen. There's I can't remember her name now, but there was this gorgeous Shotokan practitioner who, um, I can't remember her name. I used to know her name, but she was like real famous because she had these intense kata performances, right? And when you look at what she was doing and the way she was doing it, you could see the application of it. When I was in classical karate, we didn't really work on the application of the kata. You know what in some systems they call bunkai. We didn't really work on it. Okay. So I would say in final analysis, in ultimately, I would say that in the interest of proficiency, nobody should train in a martial arts system in which they are spending an inordinate amount of time on impractical stuff, right? I'm going to tease Ronnie Reagan again because we have a back and forth thing about the jurus, which you could say are the equivalent, right, of the kata, about the jurus in Penjak Silat, right? Now, because of the way the jurus in Penjak Silat are trained, you end up doing the application of the jurus. You see, because nobody expects the movements of the juru to translate directly into the fight. So it is not a translation, it is an interpretation of the movements of the juru. The thing about training the juru is that it gives people, because the juru is part of the coordination training, right? And like I told you, in my approach, coordination followed by combat, followed by flow, followed by freelance. So because you get really well coordinated through the practice of the jurus, when you start working on the application of it, right, then the adjustments that you have to make, the modifications that you have to make, the understanding that you start to develop because you're studying the application is accelerated and enhanced by the fact that you did practice the jurus. So I would say people who engage in an intense practice of the kata, when they're working on the application of the movements, and hopefully the kata are designed that way, then they might just end up getting it faster. And the reason why I changed my the direction in which I was thinking and what I was saying, Frank, is because there's now I don't follow these things, but sometimes they'll come across your feed right online. But I think that now part of the competitions in the classical karate includes kata application. I think like there's like bunkai competition now, or maybe not. But that's what the first time I saw it, that's what I thought it was. That they have now choreographed. So you'll have three guys fighting one guy, and he's using the movements of the kata. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If my understanding of this is completely off track, but I think so. Finally, it's not for me to say what the techniques in their kata should be, but I would just hope that in the interest of functionality and practicality, that they do, because we didn't do it in Shotokan when I was coming up, that they do marry the kata movement through bunkai into the kumite. Okay? All right. That's that for that. All right. Let me scroll back again and make sure I didn't miss anybody. Um, have you used AI to break down different JKD concepts or used it at all for JKD related training? Hmm. So I tried to get it to give me a number for, it was in JKD training, it was Kali training. I tried to get it to give me a number for double stick drills, right? Now I have an idea to ask it again. Let me show you something, Carla. You'll get a kick out of this, right? So the reason why I have this stuff is because this week, actually it started last week, but this week on my train ride up to Ron Reagan's, you know, I spend time putting stuff together. So in here, and again, I like to play with the Filipino martial art aspects first because they lend themselves to variability much more easily than the empty hands of Jeet Kune might. So when I'm interested in working out variables on something, right? I'll use the weapon approach first, and then when I'm kind of happy with that, not satisfied but happy, then I'll do an empty hands variation, right? So you guys won't be able to read it or anything, but this is one of the things that I was working on, and so because, all right, guys, bear with me for a while, but Carlos will understand this, and Ronnie will understand it too. Imagine if I went to Chat GPT and I said, okay, in Filipino martial arts, when you hit inward to the high line, we call that angle one, right? And I asked it, how many ways can you defend an angle one? It won't be able to answer, even though it will try to answer, right? Simply because it doesn't know. So I would have to feed it, I would have to tell it that we have deflection systems, we have blocking systems, we have direct hit systems, we have inside to outside or outside to inside defensive systems. I would have to tell it that there's like 6 or 7 base standard approaches to defending angle one. So I already did the work. So now the only way I would use AI is after feeding it all the information that it would need, I would use it to calculate something that I can't calculate myself. You see? So if I told it that angle one is an inward strike to the high line, angle three is an inward strike to the middle line, angle five is a thrust to the middle line, and so I tell it that there are certain angles of attack that are slashes or smashes, and there are certain angles of attack that are thrusts and what have you. And then I have to tell it that these numbered angles of attack are inward strikes. These numbered angles of attack are backhand strikes. So I would have to tell it we got 12 angles of attack, and we have 6 or 7 defensive systems, and then try to ask it. But see, it wouldn't know how to calculate that, because when I tell it that we have Lorgamano and we have wing and wing shield and inside and outside deflect, I now have to also tell it which defensive system is done against the inward and which defensive system is done against the backhand and which defensive system can be done against stuff that comes down the center where you could go left or right on it. So I would have already done the work. So I think the benefit for me would be after writing out or typing out all of that stuff, and I would have to write it out or type it out in Microsoft Word, because Carlos, you might remember, I never learned how to do Excel, and I still hate it to this day, that whole spreadsheet nonsense. So I would probably have to write it out like this on the train, okay? Then turn it into a Word document, and then paste that into Chat GPT or whatever, and ask it to do some calculations for me. And even then, I don't know if I would be happy with the calculations. But because you asked me that question, I suspect that you have used AI to try to break down JKD concepts or use it for JKD related training. I suspect that you have done that. So we'll have to talk about what you came up with. Right? Um, okay, Cesar says that James Bishop told me Bruce Lee adapted Taekwondo Soho's no sword into his use and no way concept, a genius for synthesizing ideas. Can we learn and improve his method, or was only his genius? His genius got the ball rolling, started the ball rolling, Cesar. So I don't know if we would call it or could call it an improvement, right? On his method. But what do you mean by his method? Are you talking about the Jeet Kune method, or if you're talking about improving on Bruce Lee's ability to synthesize ideas, then we could definitely continue to work on that. We could definitely learn from his and try to improve on that, for damn sure. Okay, but I would say that we in the JKD world we will always give Bruce Lee credit for getting it started. That whole idea of taking something from philosophy or from spirituality and working it into a martial art context. I I was going to say he was the first, but he might not have been the first, because didn't Miyamoto Musashi do stuff like that? I don't know, right? I don't know enough. Which is why I'm still a student. Okay, but definitely in the JKD world, in terms of looking at what Bruce Lee did and then um, working on. So Carlos and I um, became closer as instructor and student when we both became students of copywriting and marketing and that type of stuff. And my mentors were Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer. And my first live event with the two of them, immediately, the way they were talking about um, looking at other industries and seeing what was working for them and seeing how you could cross pollinate into your industry and what have you, made immediate sense to me from a JKD context. So that was me, having been a student of JKD for a long time, taking similarly, doing similarly to what Bruce Lee had done. Take a teaching of Krishnamurti and applying it to martial art. So these guys were talking business and marketing, and I was like, "Oh man, that'll work, right? What's this dentist over here doing to acquire new patients? What is this plumber over here doing um, when he does a presentation for a potential new client, that type of stuff. I was doing that. Okay. So I definitely think that yes, we can learn from Bruce Lee's example, and then we work on improving it for our own uh, for our own results. All right. Mike Wharton said, I trained with one of your students around 2000. Okay. He moved from Miami to Dallas. His name was Bill, African American. Shit, he was damn good. Never forgot that. That was, oh man, I can't remember Bill's last name, but I know exactly who you mean, Mike. I know exactly who you mean. And so this is 25 years ago. Well, let me tell you, he was damn good, but not because of me. He was just good, right? Okay, right? I can't sit here and take the credit. What the heck was Bill's name? But for some reason, I'm thinking that he had moved to Vegas, but maybe Vegas and Dallas. Maybe I got those two sound-ins confused. But yeah, I know exactly who you mean. Yeah, he look. I was lucky that he was my student, okay? Because whatever it is that he had trained in, he was going to be good in it. He was like another guy, and I'm thinking about Hank Hankerson, right? Harold Hankerson, because it was his birthday recently and what have you. But Harold was like that too. Um, just like physically talented, physically gifted. So no matter what it is, no matter who it is that they had gone to train martial art with, they were going to be good, But Mike, if you're in touch with Bill, give him my best regards. I hope everything's working out for him, and I'm glad that you guys were able to benefit each other. Nice one, nice one. Thanks for that, man. I appreciate it. Um, Magazine Retriever says, Silat, don't knock it till you've tried it. um, Jeet Kune Chicago. Hey, Nick. I saw some tall firefighter guy. That would be Joel Pollard from Shreveport, Louisiana. He had a video talking to you on his channel, right? Put things out teaching JKD with nothing to be found on his JKD experience. Only a pic with Dan Inosano and him saying, yeah. And him saying, right? Whatever. Okay, so is there a question? Is there a question in there, Nick? Um, I know Joel. I met Joel here in Atlanta last year or the year before. I can't remember when last we were here. Right? Joel is an enthusiastic guy. He's got some talent, right? And he's doing a lot of work to put Jeet Kune Do out there. He has a picture with Dan Inosano, yeah, probably taken at the Atlanta seminar or what have you. And he was in Fort Lauderdale. So on one of my visits up to Broward County, we sat down and we talked. Yeah, but so I'm not sure what your question is. If there's a question, Nick, let me know. Just put something further in the comments. All right. Tony Takle says you smash someone and stick with a hand, it's going to drop. And if it doesn't, you just smash him in the face with the stick, and it will definitely drop then. Nice one, Tony. All right. Okay. Here's the remainder of Nick's thing that he trained JKD for years, and so he's putting stuff up. But what I saw was JKD YouTube video that had lots of talking in circles about how to learn JKD like him. Is he legit? I know I'm not. I don't know what that last part means. So Joel's legit in that he has sought out people for training, right? It's not like he's making stuff up. And if I remember correctly, he comes up to Georgia every other month or so because he's a firefighter. So, sometimes they have like an extended set of days off. And so he comes up to Georgia and I imagine, I don't know for sure, that he takes private lessons and probably does group classes at the Francis Fong Academy. So he's legit. He's not a guy um, who hasn't even read a book, right? And is calling his thing Jeet Kune, or he's not a guy who read a book, has no training from anybody, and is calling it Jeet Kune. So he's legit. But because he lives and works in Shreveport, and I don't think he has an instructor in Shreveport, he's like me when I started out. When I started out, it was movies, books, not even video, right? And I was on my own in Barbados. Then in '83, I went out to California, and that's how I started training with Sifu Dan. So if you think about what Joel Pollard is doing, he goes when he can to train with people. He's not staying on his own in Shreveport, Louisiana, and making it up, right? As far as the YouTube thing, I admire any of the kids who grew up, right, with YouTube like as their babysitter, because those guys know how to work the social media. Joel probably has, I wouldn't be surprised if he has tens of thousands of subscribers to his YouTube channel. Because those kids, I'll call them kids, those kids know how to do it. They know how to work it, right? So um, more power to them. Teach me how to get more subscribers to my YouTube channel. I'm all ears, right? So he's legit. He's not a fraud, right? If somebody was to say, "Oh, but how long has he been in it that he should be offering people, to learn from him?" I could maybe, right? If I was unaware of the world in which we live, I could maybe say, yeah, he probably shouldn't be offering classes, because. But here's the thing, man. In 1983, after my 2 weeks with 1 week with Sifu Dan and 1 week with Francis Fong, Dan and Asano said, Dwight, you're the first person from your part of the world who has come out to see us. So if you want to get good at this and you have a group of guys back home in Barbados that you can get together with and work this stuff and show them what you've been doing, go for it. So I had permission after 2 weeks to teach, but not really teach, but to share knowledge. So if Joel, as a kid of the '90s, because he's probably 20 something, so he's probably born in the '90s. Well, what do kids of the '90s know? You got some knowledge and some talent and whatever, you put it online, and somebody's gonna go, "Hey, can I learn from you?" And what I'm gonna tell them? Oh no, you can't do that because look, um, as long as he continues to seek out information and knowledge and what have you, right? And I don't think that he's the type of person who would say, "I'm the best thing that there's ever been about Jeet Kune Do or whatever." I'm pretty sure that he lets people know that he is primarily a Jeet Kune Do student, right? But he's able to help other people who might be in a place like Shreveport, Louisiana, where there is no instructor to turn to. Because remember, Jeet Kune Do is not Muay Thai. Jeet Kune Do is not BJJ, where there is a school in every shopping center. Okay? Right? All right. I cracked myself up. Okay. Alfred Magnan, what's happening? Um, Billy Brown, troublemaker Billy Brown, my new bestie, right? I love how these people talk about the real world. Yet there are 100 videos online of completely untrained people doing exactly what the real world guys say doesn't work. Exactly. Exactly. Del Mountain says, you think that you'll be able to block a knife with a stick, but you're wrong. Speaks in very broad generalities in an angry tone. Yeah, that is less than inspiring. Well, he must know what he's doing, right? Okay, this is okay. All right. So Nick's questions are always this long, so he has to put them in three parts, right? Well known or anything, but I listen, I show my credentials. I was just confused as the things did not add up with this guy. Um, like I said, I, to the best of my knowledge, right? He's legit in that he does seek out proper instruction. He's not making it up as he goes along. He does his best to get in front of people who can teach him stuff, right? Or is it just part of an internet JKD free for all? Hey man, there's an internet free for all in everything, not just Jeet Kune, right? Um, Scorch, there is a V Arnis Jitsu YouTube channel that I stopped watching because the host shouts for the entire jury. Guys, don't get me involved in your squabbles with people, right? A V Arnis Jutsu. Don't watch it then, Scorch. Or turn the change the channel, man. You guys are hilarious. Um, what do you, Todd? What? Oh, if you guys, Todd, put up a video the other day. Oh man, now I'm trying to remember how to pronounce Todd's last name. I'm so embarrassing. I am so embarrassing. I asked him a month ago, and now I completely forgot how to pronounce his name. Anyhow, Todd put up a video. He's got a ton of stuff, I guess, for sale. Um, I'm interested, Todd, in the headgear stuff, right? So I'll reach out to you about that, right? And anyhow, what do you think of Thomas Marks leaving Tommy Carruthers big feud? I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it. But Ronnie and I were talking about this. I did see um, that Tommy had put up a post. He didn't mention any names, but he talked about being disappointed in people. So I don't know if this has anything to do with Thomas Marks or whatever, right? So what do I think of Thomas Marks leaving Tommy Carruthers big feud? I don't think anything specifically about that, but I can tell you that as somebody who has been a student and a practitioner of an art form that is full of drama, and I've been involved for 43 years, that type of thing, a guy leaving a guy that he first started with, way common, way common. It's very, well, not very seldom. I mean, it's probably happens more one way than the other. People probably stay with their instructor faithfully longer than people break off from their instructors. The percentage of people who stay with their instructor is probably much greater than the percentage of people who break off for whatever reason, right? However, it's very common. It's very common. I can think. right now of because of things that I saw that happened recently. I can think of a guy, right, who is now aligned with another guy, and I know where that first guy, I know where he got all his training from. And in the case of something that's going to happen in another few weeks, I can think of three or four or five people who got their initial training from a guy and then broke off to go do their own thing, right? So yes, it happens. But specifically between Thomas Marks and Tommy Carruthers, I don't know anything about it, so I don't think anything of that individually, right? Um, Enzo the Picker. A technique is a study of motion. It is not do this, then that, then this. A technique is a study of motion. It is not do this, then that, then this. Um, Principles and structure, etc. A technique, wait, a technique is not a study of motion. A technique is a study of motion. It is not to do this, then that, then this. Principles and structure. Man, I hate when I have to work out what the hell it is that people are trying to say. I guess Enzo the Picker is trying to say that, similar to what Sifu and Asano has said, if you get the technique, you get one thing. But if you get the principles behind the technique, right? And now I'll include what Enzo is saying. If you get an understanding of the structure behind the technique, then you get it all. If that Enzo, if that's what you're saying, then yes, I'm with you, right? Yes, Ron Goldstein, I'm picking on you, right? Um, Japan karate was a decaffeinated Okinawan. Oh, that's funny. Japan karate was a decaffeinated Okinawan karate made to have MacArthur's permission to teach it. The original style of maiming and destroying was banished. Okay. However, right? However, Cesar, no blaming of Douglas MacArthur. Okay? No blaming. We can never blame Dwight Eisenhower or Douglas MacArthur. Okay? They are to be held blameless. And those who know. Right? Um, CLRG says maybe we can have AI predict what it thinks the direction Bruce Lee would have gone down with JKD if he didn't pass away. No, it can't, because AI lacks the human interaction. AI doesn't know, other than what it can find online, right? It doesn't know, doesn't understand, it cannot um, understand or experience subtlety and nuance. So a conversation between me and Dan and Asano about a conversation between him and Bruce Lee, those two conversations would be private. They would not be published anywhere online that AI could pick up on it. So, but hold on. Because, as what they call it, Carlos, a large a large language model, I think is what they call it. And somebody told me that it aims to please, the AI aims to please. So whatever it is that you ask it, it's going to try real hard to give you an answer. So you could ask AI something like, based on all the knowledge there is out there that is accessible about Bruce Lee and why he created Jeet Kune and how he thought martial arts should be studied, can you predict how where Bruce Lee might have gone, what direction Bruce Lee might have gone in with Jeet Kune had he not died? And because the large language model aims to please, it would come up with something. And it would probably come up with something that sounds a little bit familiar because this is my understanding of it. It would be gleaning from sources online. So it might look at Wikipedia, it or what I don't know how AI would determine who are the authorities on Jeet Kune Do. Now, if AI was really as smart as it is, it would determine that I am the sole authority on Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, and then everything would be fine. Then I would have no complaints about AI predicting anything because it would just talk like I do, right? So there, does that show up? Yes. Okay. So the other part of Carlos's question, all right, I just saw this. Would it have gone down a similar direction as Dan and Asano, or would he have focused on the same stuff he taught when he started, or something totally different? Again, we don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what Bruce Lee would have done, right? However, having said that, I don't think that Bruce Lee would have gone in the direction that Dan and Asano went in. And by that, I mean Dan and Asano, high minded as he is, sought to feed two birds with, feed two cats, right, from one bowl. I'm teasing Ron Reagan again, right? That Dan Anansano tried to, I don't want to say kill two birds with one stone, right? He tried to feed two cats from one bowl because he didn't want Bruce Lee's ideas to die, but he also didn't want to push Bruce Lee's stuff out there on a wide basis because the JKD method wasn't isn't best spread in that kind of format. You see? So he was relegated to giving people an idea about the art. And I think that that's why the term Jeet Kune Do concepts came about because I can't teach Jeet Kune Do to a group of 40 people at a seminar, for example, the way Bruce Lee and I wanted to transmit Jeet Kune Do. So to that group of people, I can give them an idea about Jeet Kune Do training. And then high-minded as he is, he also wanted to promote um, his cultural arts, right? Because he's Filipino American. And because he and Richard Bustillo, like they say in the book, had seen some correlations between Filipino martial art training and Jeet Kune Do training, it was like, hey, we can push as much as we want. We can push the Filipino Kali stuff, right? But we keep its correlation to JKD and the JKD training that we got from Bruce Lee. We still keep that private in the closed door class, right? And then that just grew because then in trying to promote Bruce Lee's idea, you remember when Bruce Lee said, until human beings have three legs and three arms or whatever, right? There can't be a different style of fighting. To promote an idea like that. So If you got people who train martial art in Thailand, and you got people who train martial art in Indonesia, and you got people who train martial art in the Philippines, right? What's some of which one of the things that those three sets of people have in common? Oh, they're all human beings, and in none of those human beings have three arms and three legs. So in taking that approach and exposing people to a wide variety of martial art methods, Dan Inosanto was doing his best to promote the Jeet Kune Do idea that there can't be drastically different ways of fighting unless the human beings have three arms and three legs. But, you know, magazine companies sell by creating controversy. So it's like, no, 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 no. Here's one of Bruce Lee's top guys, and he's known for Silat, and he's known for Muay Thai, and he's known for this, right? He's not out there pushing the Bruce stuff. So now we got a guy who trained with Bruce Lee up until he passed away, and he says that he's showing only what he got from Bruce. So then the magazine just build that up. And suckers that humans are, it's like, well, that's the guy. That's not the guy. You see? And then people start choosing sides. And then the magazine just fans that fire. And next thing you know, we got original Jeet Kune Do is a version, and then we have the Dan and Asano version of Jeet Kune Do called JKD Concepts. And I still have to find somebody who can tell me, right, what Jeet Kune Do Concepts is. Okay? Even people who might call themselves Jeet Kune Do Concepts practitioners. I still have some, I'm still trying to find somebody who could give me an explanation, right? A description of what Jeet Kune Do Concepts is supposed to be about, right? Okay. Carlos, you keep getting me in trouble, right? Um, oh no, there you are again. Uh, just need to upload curricula and PDF of books so it really learns as much as possible about Cedro Bruce, even transcripts of movies. Oh my God, really? Yeah, but see, the thing about curricula is that if we upload mine, we upload who else? Um, you know what? I think there actually is PDF availability of what they might call the Seattle curriculum, the Oakland curriculum, and the Los Angeles curriculum, right? Okay. So then PDFs of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do and Bruce Lee's fighting method and John Little's Jeet Kune Do commentaries on the martial way. Then we would have to upload Chinese Kung Fu, the philosophical art of self-defense. And then we'd have to upload the Tao of Kung Fu, right? Um, then what Carlos would we have to upload PDFs of all the Jeet Kune Do books that have ever been printed, right? So all the Chris Kent and Tim Tackett stuff, all the Larry Hartzell stuff. Do we upload Ron Balicki's book? Do we upload Paul Vunak's book? Do we upload Sammy Franco's Jeet Kune Do Five Ways of Attack book? Do we upload, did I say Larry Hartzell's books? Do we upload Dave Carnell's books? Do we upload Jason Carroll's books? Um, now I'm exhausted. I can't think of anybody else, right? Do we upload all that stuff? And are you saying that if we did, that that's how AI would learn as much as possible about Bruce Lee? But even so, after uploading all of that, how is it going to think what is there what would it learn, Carlos? What would it learn from receiving the uploads of all that material? What would it learn about Bruce Lee and where he might have gone if he had not died? And don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing with you. What you're talking about is very interesting. It's very intriguing. Now, the transcripts of movies, Bruce Lee never used the term Jeet Kune in a movie, or did he? I'm a terrible Jeet Kune historian. Jeet Kune, no. So we would have to upload the transcript of Longstreet, right? The way the Intercepting Fist episode, or upload, because Bruce Lee was in more than one episode of Longstreet, right? There was like a story arc that involved him, right? So we'd have to upload all of those. I don't know what I don't know what the transcripts of the movies would do, though. I don't think that would do anything except for two lines. The one where he tells the dishwasher guy, the busboy in Way of the Dragon, that if it can help you to defend yourself in a fight, you should learn it. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And then when he told a New Zealander or Australian guy on the boat, my style, you can call it the art of fighting without fighting. Maybe then, maybe then, those two lines from transcripts would help, right? But I see where you're going with this, Carlos, but I don't see how AI would be able to think like a human and calculate anything about the direction in which Bruce Lee would have gone. But I don't have as much experience and knowledge with AI as you do. So, I should shut up and just listen. Right? Um, Nick says, rate JKD and AI. Yes. Great answer. Okay, exactly. Input all the notes and ponderings that you work into question and answering to see what calculations are output from it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Write it out and take a picture of it. It'll read the picture. Well, shoot. Okay, I'm on it then. CLRG. I'm on it. Right. Um. Okay. Nick's back, and I guess he's talking about Joel Pollard. Right. He's offering online courses and charging for it. Yeah. Well, Nick, that's what young people of the internet do, right? Because the old school idea that you got to be in a thing for 10 years before you can teach it, right? That don't work no more. So if Joel's teaching online, right? But you couldn't find anything showing him as a teacher, just him saying he's done JKD for 3 or 4. Well, yeah, his videos lead you to click the link to his online course. So he shows off his skill, and then if people are impressed enough by his skill, they click the link and they learn online from him. But the idea that you have to have been in a thing. Look, my student Bill Burner, right? So he's a personal trainer at a gym, and when he joined that company, he took over the kickboxing class. Okay, and it's a horror because you know how online every day you see videos of people. They got their gloves on, they got their Muay Thai shorts on, they got their shin gear on, and they're sparring. And so people at this place want to spar. Now, their technique level is real low. It's real bad. But what do they know? Again, because they're kids of the internet, they know that on the internet, people spar. So if I'm training in a gym with equipment that looks like the equipment I see people on the internet using and they're sparring, I should be sparring too. The idea that no, you study and you get good and then you spar. No, because that's not their world. Their world is a thing where all the answers that you want about a thing are instantaneously available to you in the palm of your hand or on a watch on your wrist or wherever the hell it is they get it from. So the idea, look, here's how it works, right? I have 43 years of experience in Jeet Kune, and I put something on YouTube and I don't know how to work it, right? I don't know how to make YouTube videos impactful, right? And then a guy, I have 43 years, this guy has 4.3 years, but he knows how to work the algorithm and what have you. You know who will get more views? You know who, and if we both offer online courses, you know who would probably get more signups? The 4.3 years guy, because he knows how to work it. And he's probably more comfortable and more presentable, right, in front of the camera than am I. So that's just the way it is. So, but if we're talking specifically, what I know about Joel Pollard, he's not a fraud because he seeks out legitimate instruction from people. And if he's sharing as he learns, I'm not going to knock him 100% for that because Dan and Asano told me the same thing. And I lived in a place where there was nobody that you could turn to for Jeet Kune Do instruction. So I had to be the guy. And Joel lives in a place where there's nobody that he can turn to for Jeet Kune Do instruction. So he's the guy. All right. Okay. That's enough about Joel Pollard for today, Nick. Right. Tony says, I've seen that guy that he's I see that guy that he's talking about. You have to turn down the sound because you actually think he's yelling at you, which he is. No, that must be his style, right? Nick says paragraph questions. Okay, that's funny. Okay, everybody. Um, okay, I am enlisting the support and the help of everybody to help me to remember how to pronounce Todd's last name, Kennedy. Kennedy. Now, what word association can I do with that? Who's Barbie's boyfriend? Ken, right? And then Siesta Key, Kennedy, Ken, Sarasota, whatever. Okay, Todd, next month when we do Ask Me Anything, you test me on this, okay? Kennedy. All right, got it. Right. Rob, Rob says, who cares about Tommy? Seems there's all this drama or a negative. that's not, that's not fair. There is, but there is definitely a lot of drama involved. I can't see life responsible, but I'm here to stir the pot. Rob, you're terrible. No, you guys have seen me. I think I had Tommy on the dialogues twice, and he's like, there are some figures, right? Some personalities in Jeet Kune Do that, for lack of a different expression, drama seems to follow them. Like Lamar Davis, right? For example. But one of the things that I admire most about people like Tommy Carruthers and Lamar Davis is their absolute dedication, right, to Bruce Lee's art of Jeet Kune Do. There's no doubt in that, right? Doesn't make anybody a perfect human being who makes no missteps. Doesn't mean that that there's not going to be anybody who has a falling out with them, or that there's never, everybody's going to love them and there are not going to be any detractors. That's just not the way human nature is. But Lamar Davis and Tommy Carruthers, you cannot you cannot find you cannot find stronger dedication to Bruce Lee's art of Jeet Kune Do than you get from guys like that, right? Okay, Cesar says, "Do you have any theory or opinion?" I have a ton of theories and opinions. Oh, about something? Why people leave JKD? Huh? The internet has many videos of people talking about why they don't practice JKD anymore, why they left it. Um, geez. Well, here's one reason. They expect something when they sign up for Jeet Kune Do, and then they don't get the thing that they were expecting. So, for example, right? Richard Torres, my good friend Richard Torres, tells a story about um, a Ted Wong Jeet Kune Do seminar, and there were some guys who showed up with Kali sticks, right, at their seminar. Now, this weekend, unfortunately, the three instructors one art seminar in New York featuring Richard Torres, Octavio Quintero, and Joaquin Marcelo. Now, if Ronnie and I did not have Sifu Dan and Sifu Francis on our calendar for this weekend, we probably would have gone to New York, right? I kid you not. We would have gone, okay? Because Dan Inosanto has always encouraged me to seek out other JKD people from day one. He's the reason why when Ted Wong came to Miami, we went to the seminar. He's the reason why when Gary Dill came to Miami, I went to the seminar. Um, Steven Plink in the Penchak Silat world, his seminar. Willem de Tours, right, in the Penchak Silat world, his seminar. Um, um, who was it? Jean Jacques? Yeah, Jean Jacques Machado, of course. That makes sense. Who else? I'm trying to think who else. Um, Even George Dillman. We went to my old buddy Ricky Amador and I went to George Dillman seminar too, right? Why? Because you want to see for yourself. Okay, you want to see for yourself. You don't want to involve yourself too much in the reported stuff, right, and hearsay and what have you. If you can get in front of somebody for yourself, then that's what you do. So Richard put up a post that there were some people who registered for the seminar and they asked if they should bring their Kali sticks, right? So I thought that was pretty funny. But generally speaking, Cesar, I would say that that's why people leave Jeet Kune Do. That's why people leave anything, right? When what you expect is not what you get, So, um, who I don't know if there's anybody to blame for that, right? It's just the thing. So yeah, a lot of people. Uh, okay, Todd Kennedy. How you like me now, right? Um, I saw you on the Legends. I saw you on the Legends 2024 DVD. I was very impressed with your training DVD. It was June 6, 7, 8, and 9. Legends 2024 DVD. I'm on a Legends DVD. Oh, okay. So Sifu Dan maybe Sifu Dan called me up to demo something. Okay. Yeah, that's probably what that was. All right. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully I didn't look too bad. My first Sifu, Keith Witowski. Oh my God, Keith Witowski and I go back to the 1980s, right? How many seminars did you guys have to attend to get your associate instructorship? Oh my God. Um, I couldn't tell you because I got my apprentice instructorship in 1985 and I got my associate's instructorship in maybe 1992, right? Maybe 1992. Um, Now I'm trying to remember when I got my full my full instructorship. That might have been 99. I don't so I can't I don't know if back then there was a fixed number of hours or seminars that you had to attend, Todd. There might be now because I know that now at the different seminars there's the instructor list, right? That all the instructors who are in attendance that they mark how many hours they're doing because that stuff is recorded. Because I think there's a requirement to do 20 hours a year at an Inasano event. And so I guess then they count up the hours and maybe there's a requirement for a certain amount of hours. But I don't know if all of that was in place in the 80s when I came along. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But if I have my chronology correct, 85 to 90, I want to say 85 to 92 to 99 or something like that. I really don't know, right? Sorry, I couldn't be more help, right? What was the and if you're someone certified, wait, if you're under someone certified by Guru Dan, how would one get an instructorship from Guru Dan himself? Well, if you're training with an Inasano instructor, right, then to me, it's up to that person, right? If your instructor is an Inasano certified instructor, then certification under Inasano should come through that person. Now, we were talking about how sometimes things don't go the way they should, right? This is one of those things, you see? So I could have gone and gotten instructorship under other JKD people, under other Filipino martial art people, but I had instructorship under Dan Inasano. So if I have instructorship under Dan Inasano, why do I have to go get instructorship from a student of Dan Inasano's? Right? So if you're a student of a student of Dan Inasano's, you go through that guy. You don't go around that guy to get to Inasano. That that's not how you do it. Well, but that's not how I would do it, right? But who knows? Okay. So, but my suggestion, if you're training with somebody who's an Inasano certified instructor and you have an interest in becoming an instructor yourself, you talk to your instructor, and then he's the person who decides, right, where you go from there. Okay. Um, Scorch says, I think I would practice defending myself from an arena seat beat down in the empty bleachers in Tropical Park. Scorch, you're hilarious. Greg Kennedy, what's up? Greg Kennedy, I saw you sent me something. Orlando is 3 hours away from Miami. Okay, I'm not sure if you know how long the state of Florida is, but Orlando is 3 hours away from Miami, right? Redistro says when understanding philosophy goes wrong, Dan and Richard had no idea. That's funny. Enzo the Picker says JKD is one of the last arts that too many claim is the end all be all, where most arts have moved on from that and do much better commercially. You're onto something right there, Enzo. You're onto something. I agree. Um, Redestro says Jeet Kune concepts is Jeet Kali Do. That is that's hilarious. Terry Tom's book. Yes, 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 yes. That's what that you would have to upload those too, Carlos. Right? Ryan Chafin says your notes from Cass. Okay, so again, I apologize, guys. When I scrolled through the comments, you might have been talking about something from 15 minutes ago, and I only just got to the comments. So Ryan, I'm not sure if you mean that I should upload my notes from Cass that AI can read those also, right? Um, yeah, Tony says that AI would just regurgitate the information, so you're right back where you started, right? No new information, so it doesn't actually answer your question. That's what I'm afraid of, right? Carlos says that Chat GPT can read the picture, so it takes pictures of your notes over the centuries. Over the centuries, really? You're gonna go there? Not over the decades, right? It's a good thing that the parchment that we used back in the Garden of Eden for writing, right, still exists today. That I can upload it to Chat GPT, right? Get your own custom JKD GPT. Whoa, 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 right? Um, Tommy's longtime student left his organization over politics. Happened. He got all he can out of Tommy, so what's the use? Yeah, well, okay, right. Um, Todd says anybody here for well, remember Todd that Tackett is 82 years old, right? Moved to North Carolina to to be with his grandkids. So he's retired. Um, they had a couple of weeks ago. They had the last class at his house in Redlands because I think that house is being sold or whatever. So all kinds of things, right? But Tack is essentially retired. I agree with you. I haven't seen him post anything, but he was winding down from that stuff for the past couple of years. So I'm not surprised if because he's not active. He's not active in Jeet Kune at all, right? In terms of teaching or whatever. So I think that's why he hasn't posted. Um, Greg Kennedy says everything you think you know will be turned upside down. Scorch says yes. 3 hours and $50 in toll charges. Right. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. Right. Um, from, okay. Yeah. I think that's it from everybody. Right. Yeah. Okay. And we're coming up on 2 hours. So I should, cause I think we start at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning and it's 8 p.m. now. So, old men like me got to I can't even get beauty sleep anymore because nothing can be done with this face, right? But I want to thank all you guys for hanging out with me for another episode of the Ask Me Anything Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. And Todd, Todd says go for another 2 hours. Not tonight, my friend. Right? We'll have to do that. We'll have to do that. Let me see. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think the last Friday of October, I'm in town. But after 2 hours, this voice starts to go and what have you. But I appreciate it, right? I appreciate it. Okay, all right, guys, gotta run. Um, you guys have a great weekend, and we will do this again in another 4 weeks or so. Okay, you guys take care. This is Dwight Wizard, Jeet Kune Rebel signing off. Talk soon.